It's no secret that Asians, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders are rendered invisible in American society. And the workplace is no exception. My name is Ryan Takemiya. I'm an executive DEI consultant, and I help people overcome what I like to call toxic invisibility, which is a new term for a very old problem, and that is the exclusion that we as Asian Americans face in the workplace, in society, at home, even inside our own minds. Now, to illustrate what I mean by toxic invisibility, I'd like to start by making a little wager. I would bet money that if I were to ask you to stand up in front of your managers or the C-suite of your company and brag about your accomplishments at work, that you'd probably have a minor anxiety attack. I'd also bet that if I were to ask you instead to think of something that you're bad at, or think of a time that you failed or made a mistake, that your head would probably fill with about a dozen examples. I'd like to make another wager. I would bet that during meetings, when people are talking, if I were to ask you to interrupt everyone and speak louder than everyone in the room, that you'd have another anxiety attack. I'd be willing to bet that instead, you probably prefer to wait for an opening in the conversation before you say anything. And sometimes that opening never comes, and you often leave the meeting not having said everything that you wanted to say. Now, how do I know these things to be true? Well, it's because you're probably just like me. Now, a career development coach who is unfamiliar with the Asian American experience would probably come in and say, hey, you should turn all that around. Be proud. Brag about yourself. Be aggressive. Take up space. But if you're not an aggressive person, if you don't normally brag, it would be like asking you to force yourself to be someone who you're not. A career development coach unfamiliar with the Asian American experience won't know that there are about a dozen different reasons why you won't brag about yourself. Some of them external obstacles imposed on us, like racism and xenophobia. Some of them internal forces that we impose on ourselves, like psychological obstacles, cultural obstacles. A career development coach might even say to you, or to Asian Americans in general, that you need to change who you are in order to fit in, to succeed. That you should speak the language of the American workplace. That you should look at successful people and emulate them. Do away with the parts of you that aren't working. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because that is the same kind of societal pressure that we feel as Asian Americans to assimilate to American culture in general. Hey, this is America. Speak the language. But I've got a crazy question for you. What if you didn't have to change in order to fit in? What if not only could you fit in, but you could be more understood, more accepted? You could build stronger relationships with the people around you and boost your self-esteem, not by bragging or by being aggressive, but by actually being more of yourself, more you. What if I told you that getting ahead in your career, becoming more visible, and even altering your workplace culture actually required you to be more honest? Not to hide your Asianness, but rather to embrace it, share it with others, and most importantly, build structures around it. You see, I know why you won't brag about yourself. It's because you come from a culture that values group harmony over individual need. Thousands and thousands of years of cultural norms passed down to you from generation to generation make it taboo for you to brag about yourself or outshine the people around you. In addition, you come from an immigrant community that has suffered from and continues to suffer from terrifying acts of racial violence, and who have learned the hard way that sticking your neck out and drawing attention to yourself could be dangerous. You carry within you multiple lifetimes worth of trauma, conditioning, and culture. You see, there are real, valid reasons why you won't speak up and speak out. We can't just ask you to change in order to fit in. That would be the opposite of inclusivity. Before we do anything, we need to understand what toxic invisibility is. I believe toxic invisibility consists of three elements. Number one, internal forces like guilt, shame, and intergenerational trauma. Number two, external forces like racism, xenophobia, and the myths that other people have of our community. And number three, cultural forces of invisibility, like how American culture tends to dominate and overshadow other cultures in the room. To overcome these forces of invisibility, I have developed a three-part strategy that will help you become better seen and heard immediately. First, to overcome the internal forces of invisibility, we need to heal. We need to heal from within, heal from our trauma, and that involves regulating our nervous systems, breaking cycles of shame, and crafting entirely new narratives about ourselves to help us understand our own experiences. Second, to overcome the external forces of invisibility, we need to take those newly crafted narratives and share them with others in the form of emotionally honest storytelling. This will help us repair the relationships that we have with others and help them see us for who we really are and replace those damaging myths that they have about us. Lastly, in order to overcome the cultural forces of invisibility, we need to engage in what I call cultural synthesis, where we take all the cultures in the room and combine them. Rather than cultures competing for dominance, we take those cultures and they merge in order to create a new culture, a third culture, if you will, that is both completely new and also a product of the cultures that created it. This is true inclusivity. Our invisibility in the workplace is a cultural problem and therefore requires a cultural solution. But you don't achieve that kind of cultural change through off-site team building exercises or cultural sensitivity trainings. True cultural change starts from within with healing, then moves to the communal through storytelling, and finally to the system itself through cultural synthesis. If you find yourself being rendered invisible at work, my advice to you, don't change yourself to fit the culture. Change the culture to fit you. Hi, my name is Ryan Takemiya, and I've spent years building community power from the ground up, helping people heal, find their voice, and create new culture. And I'm bringing this method to workplaces everywhere to help give Asian Americans and everyone the tools they need to create radical visibility for all.